Manever I say ma PENDREAM TV. PENDREAM TV there, osia dem yopo.
Once again, welcome to PENDREAM TV, the only channel that brings you the best in politics and latest updates. If you are new here, please don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification bell, like and also share for other new members to watch. You can also leave your comments after watching. Thank you. Or join the discussion by sending us a voice note on 0277 128 777. Now our team will be glad to meet you on one-on-one discussion. Thank you. Afari Gyan has also come out endorsing Mahama policy of paying the assembly members by saying if they are not paid, then what is the justification of paying the MPs? And he said he have no explanation to that, but also give the journalists the chance to investigate that and come out with why the MPs are paid and the assembly members are not paid. That much I do. Join me listening to what he said into detail. Thank you.
To agree and say that this is what we wanted as a document. This particular man who's going to speak to us has been through it all, having been involved in electoral matters, and I'm sure he may give us. He doesn't want us to talk much about him, but we have to. We all know who he is and how valuable he's been. Born June 18, 1945, somewhere in the Bono region. Anyimon, that's Enyimom. Thank you so much. He was born there. He attended Achimota School and Adi School for his A-level, and also graduated from the University of Ghana in 1967 with BA degree, Bachelor of Arts degree in philosophy. He went to attain an MA in African politics in 1969 from the same university. He also studied at the United States, where he was awarded a PhD in political science from the University of California in Santa Barbara. Afari Gyan worked as a lecturer and a professor in political science at the University of Ghana. He has also lectured in the United States and Nigeria. He was a member of the committee of experts that drafted the 4th Republican Constitution for Ghana. So you can call him the father of the Constitution. We're going to hear him comment about his child, whether he's proud of this child after 30 years, whether he thinks there are some things he would have done when he was doing the cooking. We'll be hearing from him today. He was appointed deputy chairperson of the Interim National Electoral Commission by the PNDC to usher us into 1992. He retired in 2015, and the rest is history. Ladies and gentlemen, with a round of applause, let's welcome Dr. Kojo Afari Gyan.
Thank you very much. There have been a few things have been turned upside down, and I'm not going to waste time. I went to Addis Ababa first before Achimota, and that is very important. My little town, dear Jine, you've heard little town next to Techiman. When they sing, they say our capital is Jine. It is not geographically correct. Anyway, I feel very honored to have been asked to share my reflections on aspects of our Constitution. When I got the invitation, I asked myself, why me? Why does anybody think that my reflections will be interesting or useful? I decided that I'll take it as an invitation to contribute to a democratic dialogue. And a democratic dialogue is reason-based. I want us to note that. And because it's reason-based, Persons who have contrary views can agree to disagree on reasonable grounds and in mutual respect. In that context, you could say that practically anybody's reflections might be interesting or useful, provided they are reason-based, because they could then stimulate an interesting or a useful discussion. So, moderator, it is quite a long time now since Ghana adopted democracy as the benchmark for running its affairs as a nation. If we take the time we became an independent country at the beginning, we have been on the road to democracy for over 60 years now, albeit punctuated by considerable periods of military rule. I think that our own history and the histories of other countries clearly show that this path to democracy is not one of linear progression. So it is useful to view democracy in practice as a work in progress that calls for continual appraisal to see whether we are on the right path. Against that backdrop, my reflections on our democracy are limited in two ways to the three specified aspects, namely the Constitution, elections, and the judiciary, and to our endeavors in the Fourth Republic only. I'll give the reflections in the specified order, beginning with the Constitution. Our current Constitution is the fourth since independence. It has lasted for 3 decades, nearly half of the entire life of our country as an independent nation, and in fact, longer than the 3 previous constitutions put together last year. On that basic fact alone, some people say that we have not done badly. In fact, we have done reasonably well by the Fourth Republican Constitution. The fact that it has lasted so long. And they point in particular to the fact that we have succeeded to elect a government peacefully through the ballot box each of the specified periods during the 30 years. But I think that notwithstanding, there are clear signs of deconsolidation of our democracy. Over the years, we have become poorer as a nation and as a people, due mainly to pervasive corruption, particularly in the public sector, in public life. Unfortunately, some of our key institutions are becoming institutions of dubious integrity. Increasingly, candidates who lose elections are alleging manipulation and refusing to accept the results. By and large, we have not been able to diffuse the principles of democratic behavior widely into our society. And there is a general lack of predictability in social life, which is a disincentive to proper behavior. Some people will say that these are perceived and not real ailments of our democracy. But that doesn't change the picture at all. Because for purposes of trust and confidence in public institutions and public office holders, perception is as important as reality. In any case, in all probability, some of these factors have contributed to the many calls to amend our Constitution. I think three things relating to amending the Constitution are worthy of note. First, the amendment process is likely to be a long one because it will require, as a first step, a referendum done on its own or attached to a general election. Secondly, because practically everything that goes awry in our country is somehow often blamed on the Constitution, it will be difficult to amend the Constitution to the satisfaction of the general public. But we must be careful not to unnecessarily tinker with the Constitution. Thirdly, the extent to which amending the Constitution will cure the ailments of our democracy is a moot issue. Although the example of Singapore shows that it is possible to use law to change people's attitudes and behavior. The moderator, in spite of the foregoing caveats, in principle, the calls to amend the Constitution are in order. Because a Constitution is not like a Bible, whose precepts are held to be unchangeable. If it were so, a Constitution would not contain procedures for making changes to it. In fact, by law, on a regular basis, some countries do an appraisal of their constitutional performance over the preceding period with a view to making recommendations for effective performance where necessary. This practice may be worth our consideration in amending our Constitution. I'm aware that individuals have made several recommendations for changes to our Constitution, and I also know that a body of officially sponsored recommendations for that purpose exists. But I must say that my reflections are without prejudice to any such recommendations. Against that backdrop, my reflections on the Constitution will consist of short statements, and I mean short statements, relating to three issues: the separation of powers between the executive and the legislature, the Council of State, and local government. The separation of powers is intended to make it possible for one branch of government to check any excesses of another branch. In my view, with about half of ministers plus some of the deputy ministers drawn from Parliament, the legislature cannot effectively check the executive. Cabinet decisions are binding on ministers and deputy ministers, and they must be defended by them, including in Parliament. I think that a system where ministers and their deputies are drawn from outside Parliament will be better suited to holding the executive in check. Indeed, the requirement to appoint so many ministers from Parliament may be an incentive for a president to increase the number of ministers in order to minimize potential trouble with Parliament. Now, the Council of State. We would all agree that the Council of State has an imposing name. But the way it has so far gone about its work has made it look like an honorific institution without power. Yet, apart from the President, the Council has power to advise every public institution in Ghana. Based on my own experience at the Electoral Commission, I can say that the Council takes briefings from public institutions and gives them advice in turn. I think it will help the public to gauge the Council's impact if periodically it issues a report indicating what advice it has given to which institution. In the Council's relation with the President, there is one thing in particular that I think requires clarification. The President appoints some people in consultation with the Council and some on the advice of the Council. What is the difference? Some lawyers say there is no difference at all, and the President can do as he pleases in both instances. But others say that unlike consultation, in the case of advice, the President cannot appoint unless he is so advised. If that is indeed the case, it must be made explicit in any amendment to the Constitution so that the President cannot ignore the advice of the Council. Now, local government. I strongly believe that we cannot achieve any appreciable level of development in this country without fundamental reforms in our local government system. I strongly believe that. Perhaps the failure of our local government system is best dramatized by the not infrequent calls on the President and the central government to provide toilets for towns and villages. That, for me, dramatizes the failure of our local government. Clearly, what we have now is the shadow and not the substance of decentralization. But I think a number of things could be done to make decentralization real. One, we must abandon the earlier idea of gradual devolution of powers, go back to the drawing board, and give the assemblies, district, municipal, and metropolitan real and adequate powers and resources to decide and do things on their own. Two, I share the view that the district, municipal, and metropolitan chief executives must be elected to promote their accountability to the local people. Three, I also share the view that we should stop playing the ostrich and open the election of the members of the district, municipal and metropolitan assemblies to political party participation. However, I think that the election formula should not be the first past the post, but a form of proportional representation called mixed member proportional. I'll leave it at that. I cannot go explaining it, but I want you to keep it in mind. No first past the post for electing the district assembly members. Let us try, my recommendation, the mixed member proportional formula for electing people. I think if we use that formula, it holds the promise of bringing more political parties into the local government system. As it is today, I think it is predominantly NDC, NPP, even though we say it's non-partisan. Everybody knows that the composition of these assemblies predominantly NDC, NPP. 4, I think it should be made an offense to delay the release of any statutory allocations of funds to the assemblies. The present system whereby maybe first, second allocations do not go. 6 months, no allocations gone. I think should be an offense to delay the release of funds. Finally, on local government, my understanding is that the elected members of the assemblies do not receive salary for their work. They do not receive pay. Nor are they given money to develop their respective electoral areas. If this is correct, what is the justification for members of parliament receiving money from the district assembly's common fund? I think it is a discriminatory practice and must discontinue, particularly as it appears not to have any legal basis at all. I've asked many people, is there any legal basis for them receiving the money? And nobody seems to know. Maybe the journalists here, you can take the matter up and find out whether there is, in some way, legal basis for the MPs receiving money from the common fund. If not, it is not good for our members of parliament to live with an illegality. That is all that.
Thank you for watching. PENDREAM TV really appreciates your time. If you have not yet subscribed, please subscribe, hit the notification bell, like, share, and also comment. Thank you.
PENDREAM TV now, so far so good. Say open online portal e wo Ghana. Nipa share, nipa follow, nipa comment here. To my best of knowledge, without any biases, PENDREAM TV.